Ah, good old NFL football. It's the perfect American sport of rugged grit and determination. Yes, the USA and the NFL are... Wait, did he just cross the 55-yard line? And is that upright in the end zone? And are some of these players speaking French? What the hell is this?
Oh, sorry, eh? This is Canadian football.
What the fuck do you mean Canadian football?
3 downs instead of 4. Bigger field. Faster, more exciting game.
Fine, I'll give it a shot. Can't be worse than Canadian TV. Go! Touchdown! We did it!
We're going to the Grey Cup, Jimmy!
Yes! Grey Cup! Grey Cup! Grey... Wait, what the f*** is a Grey Cup?
Yeah, so apparently Canada has its own football league. The CFL, founded in 1958, consists of 9 teams and stadiums spread across the Great White North, playing a 21-week season from mid-June through early November. Seeing as we've already done a series on the NFL's urbanism, we were curious how the urban planning of the areas around the stadiums of the CFL compared. We are not Canadians, so we made a point to, wherever possible, consult local planners or urbanist creators to get on-the-ground perspectives. So, how good or bad is the urbanism of the CFL? Are the stadiums in isolated locations far away from anyone, or are they set closer to population centers? Are they accessible by transit, or are you forced to drive to them? Do they have a good mix of land uses around them, or are they adrift in oceans of parking? Let's get ready to get any concussions treated at the hospital for free as we get ready for some CFL Urbanism!
You guys are the world's leader in handgun violence, your healthcare system is bankrupt, and your country is deeply divided on almost every important issue.
Your cops are called Mounties.
Built in 1908, TD Place Stadium is one of the oldest stadiums in North America. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is located along the shores of the Rideau Canal near downtown Ottawa. It is well connected to a dense, walkable street grid and urban trails, so the stadium scores very well on both walkability and bikeability. The stadium is surrounded by excellent land uses, which are only getting better. Around it are a park, diverse retail and mixed-use venues, other event spaces like the historic Aberdeen Pavilion, and dense residential neighborhoods. This creates consistent activation of the area year-round. In the next few years, half of the stadium, which is currently home to a hockey stadium, will be torn down and replaced with a new venue and residential towers. The stadium's transit service is very good. It is served by 3 bus routes, but these need higher frequencies. To bring the stadium up to top marks, dedicated transit lanes should be added, along with greater bus frequencies or higher capacity transit such as light rail should be built out along Bank Street. TD Place Stadium gets a solid A for its urbanism. It's an excellent example of good sports urbanism.
They had to do their vows twice, once in French.
They speak French there too? God, that place is a mess.
Built in 1918, Percival Molson Memorial Stadium is the smallest stadium in the CFL. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is built into the slopes of Mount Royal at the edge of downtown Montreal. It is extremely well connected with both a very walkable street grid and urban trail network, giving it top shelf and far-reaching walkability and bikeability. The stadium has excellent land use. Initially built as part of McGill University, it abuts several university properties. Around it, there are a wide array of land uses, including parks, the rest of the university campus, row homes, apartment buildings, and various cultural and commercial establishments. This means that the area around the stadium is active year-round, creating vibrant and productive communities. The stadium has great transit. It is served by several bus lines with varied but overall good frequency, and is within 15-minute walks of both the McGill and Place des Arts subway stations. While dedicated transit lanes on Park Avenue could improve bus service, the transit is overall excellent. Percival Molson Memorial Stadium receives a coveted A+ for its urbanism. Very well done.
You see, in 1995, The Rock was cut from the Canadian Football League. Now, do you have any idea how much you gotta suck to get cut from the Canadian Football League?
Built in 1960, the original McMahon Stadium was constructed in just 103 days. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is in northwest Calgary, adjacent to the city's largest university. With the Trans-Canada Highway and several other wide arterial roads around it, the stadium is largely cut off from the surrounding communities, greatly harming its walkability. The stadium is immediately neighbored by a mix of large parking lots and athletic facilities used by various student teams. Across the wide roads to the north is the University of Calgary, and to the south, east, and west are a mix of low to medium density residential neighborhoods. Though these spaces have better land use patterns than their equivalents in the United States, they are still somewhat car-centric, but the tweaks needed to shift towards a more human-centric design are far easier to implement than they would be in the US. The stadium has surprisingly solid transit. Accessible via a pedestrian bridge over the Crowchild Trail Highway is the Banff Trail LRT station for Calgary's C Train Red Line, which provides convenient access to an ever-increasing amount of the city. The stadium is also served by a few bus routes, though frequencies could be improved on some lines. There are plans in the works for infill and transit-oriented development on the parking lots and vacant or underutilized parcels in the stadium area. This would see new retail, residential, athletic, and public spaces added, addressing almost all the current land use issues. However, to bring the score up to an A, it is critical that the roads also be addressed by eliminating slip lanes at intersections, adding roundabouts, installing bus and bike lanes, putting in traffic calming measures, and adding more pedestrian crossings over the highway. As is, McMahon Stadium gets a C+ for its urbanism. But, if the plans go through, this could easily raise the grade significantly.
Recent austerity measures have forced her to cut one nation from the Commonwealth. Word is it's either going to be Canada or Tonga. The odds are against us and you're making them worse. They have coconuts, Jimmy. Coconuts!
Built in 1978, Commonwealth Stadium is the largest stadium in the CFL. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is in the Macaulay neighborhood at the edge of downtown Edmonton. Though 112 Avenue Northwest is a bit wide, and there is a distinct lack of bike lanes on the road, there is a nearby shared urban trail which connects to an expanding bike network across the city. Overall, the pedestrian connectivity is okay, with some room for improvement. The land use in the stadium area is solid. It has minimal surface parking, and the surrounding neighborhoods are a good mix of parks, housing of varying densities, retail, and other mixed-use structures. The human-scale layout makes it that even the large stadium feels like it's part of the community, rather than an unwelcomed addition. The stadium has great transit. It is directly served by the light rail Capital Line, giving it easy access to most of the city by transit. In addition, the stadium is served by 3 bus lines, though frequencies could be improved a little. The stadium's parking lots are utilized for park and ride services for transit users on non-game days, and direct services to several transit terminals before and after the games or special events. The area is in the process of being improved, with the remaining vacant nearby lots slated for infill development in the coming years as part of the Greater Stadium Yards plan. Combining this with bike and pedestrian improvements such as raised crosswalks, bike lanes, wider sidewalks with street trees, and roundabouts would give the area top-tier urbanism. As is, the area gets a solid A for its urbanism and is well on its way towards an A+.
You are from Canada, yes?
Yes?
So my first question is, why have you not left this place?
Built in 1983, BC Place has the largest retractable cable-supported roof in the world. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is in downtown Vancouver on the banks of False Creek. Connected to the dense human-scale street grid of the city, and served by multiple bike lanes of varying degrees of physical protection, it scores exceedingly well on both walkability and bikeability. The stadium has near ideal land use. Apart from a few surface parking lots along the shoreline, the stadium is otherwise surrounded by mixed-use apartment, office, retail, and cultural buildings as far as the eye can see. As a result, there is consistent activation of the space year-round. The stadium has excellent transit service. It is just a couple of blocks away from the Expo line of the SkyTrain and is served by multiple high-frequency bus lines. This means that the entire city, and much of the region, has transit access to the stadium. Some improvements could be made by fully protecting all bike lanes and by replacing the shore parking lots with public parks and infill development on other nearby vacant lots. BC Place receives an A+ for its urbanism. We need more stadium urban planning like this.
And here come the Toronto Argonauts!
World-class city! World-class city! World-class city! World-class city!
Built in 2007, BMO Field was originally Canada's first purpose-built soccer stadium. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is located near the banks of Lake Ontario, just outside downtown Toronto. Though it is somewhat cut off from the rest of the city by an expressway and train tracks, a pedestrian tunnel and new bridge have helped to greatly mitigate this, with a rebuild of the GO train station set to further help reduce the division. Obstacles aside, wide sidewalks and unprotected bike lanes provide a solid foundation for walkability, if not bikeability. The stadium is surrounded by parking large enough to fit it 2.5 times over, plus additional lots in the surrounding area. However, it is also close to a variety of large event venues and cultural institutions, as well as park spaces. Though year-round spatial activation and land uses in general could be improved, this is far from awful land use. The stadium has solid transit service. It is served by a streetcar route, as well as a few bus routes and a regional rail station. The frequencies on all modes vary, but are overall in the right range. This means the stadium is accessible to a fair amount of the region by transit. Some improvements can be made by adding proper protection to the existing bike lanes and expanding the lane network as a whole. Further improvements could be made by pursuing infill development on the parking lots, including hotels, mixed-use apartment buildings, and expanding park space. BMO Field merits a B for its urbanism. There is a lot of room for improvement, but a solid foundation on which to build it.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
Built in 2013, Princess Auto Stadium is the only CFL venue to have hosted an American NFL game. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is located on the campus of the University of Manitoba, far from downtown Winnipeg, amongst the city's suburban sprawl. The overall car-oriented layout and design of the streets and roads, including quite wide arterials, lack of sidewalks on some streets, and sprawling parking lots and high setbacks in the surrounding areas, means it scores very poorly on walkability, with the possible exception of the campus area. The land use around the stadium is a mixed bag. The university campus has overall good land use, as many higher education campuses tend to, though it has a fair number of large parking lots. Beyond the campus, the surrounding land use is dominated largely by a disused golf course, which is greatly underutilized and largely not open to the public. In addition, the communities beyond the university campus are largely car-centric in their design. The transit of the stadium is surprisingly solid. It is directly served by the new BRT Blue Line, as well as several other ordinary bus routes. All routes have acceptable or excellent frequencies, making the stadium very transit accessible. Improvements are planned, with better bike and pedestrian infrastructure with mixed-use infill development on the land of the former golf course. These will likely greatly improve the urbanism of the stadium. Further improvements can be made by pursuing redevelopment of the strip malls and parking lots. Presently, Princess Auto Stadium gets a solid C+ for its urbanism.
Marshall, Canada, what are you going to do? Hire a regular dog sled or a stretch?
Canada? Are you registered at Tim Hortons?
Built in 2014, Hamilton Field was originally Tim Hortons Field until 2024, and is in the process of finding a new corporate naming sponsor. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium is in the midst of a low-rise residential neighborhood in Hamilton. It is well integrated with the human-scale street grid of the community, scoring the stadium high marks on walkability. There are bike lanes on Cannon Street, which connect with a wider network of protected bike lanes. However, the lanes near the stadium are unprotected, which somewhat harms bikeability. The stadium is nestled amid a neighborhood of row homes, schools, and community buildings. Though the neighborhood could do with some more parks and green spaces, this is overall good land use. There are some industrial and logistics spaces to the north, which could be great sites for mixed-use redevelopment. The stadium is served by 4 bus lines with varying levels of frequency. Some lines could do with more frequent service, while others are already in good shape. On game days, Tiger Cat tickets are counted as prepaid fare cards for these buses, incentivizing transit use by attendees. In addition, an express shuttle bus operates between the downtown GO transit station and the stadium before and after games. Taken together, these bus routes give the stadium good access to the wider city and decent regional connectivity. Improvements could be made by increasing the frequency of some bus lines, adding a GO station near the stadium, building out a light rail line, fully protecting the bike lanes, and expanding the bike lane network, and pursuing infill development in the industrial areas. Hamilton Field gets a very strong B+ for its urbanism. This cat could roar with just a few tweaks.
Regina, Saskatchewan.
Built in 2017, Mosaic Stadium is the youngest stadium in the CFL. So, how's its urbanism? The stadium resides about a mile from the downtown in the Real District, a historic events, sporting, and entertainment district. A railroad cuts the city in half, which creates something of a barrier to connectivity. Lewin Drive to the west also impacts these metrics. Beyond these, human-scale blocks score the area high marks on walkability, though a distinct lack of bike lanes, especially on the wider roads, greatly harms bikeability. The land use is a mixed bag. While the surrounding neighborhood consists largely of charming row homes, the Real District is a bit too car-oriented. Though the diversity of events within the district means there is decent year-round activation of the space, it is still largely car-oriented and insular. This means people will go to the events and leave without lingering in the space afterwards and making the space feel rather empty. The stadium is served directly by 1 bus line, with 3 to 5 additional lines within a 10 to 15 minute walk of the venue. The frequencies of all lines, though, are low, with some routes not even operating on weekends. To the stadium's credit, it does offer event-specific shuttle bus services to select destinations, such as the downtown, university, and a few other hubs. Improvements could be made by adding protected bike lanes, increasing bus service and frequency, creating a regional BRT or LRT system, and by pursuing infill development on the vacant parcels and parking lots. Overall, Mosaic Stadium gets a C for its urbanism. A bit rough, but ready to ride with a few tweaks. We went into this series not quite sure what to expect. Many of our Canadian urban planning and urbanist creator colleagues often bemoan how car-centric Canada's urban planning is. But when we'd examined Canadian cities before, at a glance, we would see that a lot of them have much better transit and land use planning than their equivalents in the United States. Having gone through the entire CFL, we are left with some interesting takeaways. The CFL has much better urban planning than the NFL does. None of its stadiums got an F or a D. The lowest grade anyone in the CFL received was a C. 2 more stadiums got C+, 1 got a B, 1 got a B+, 2 got A's, and 2 stadiums even got something no NFL venue did: solid A+. Overall, the CFL gets an average of a B+ for its urbanism. Why and how did these stadiums avoid many of the urban planning pitfalls of the NFL? We spoke with a range of planners and experts, including Professor Dan Mason at the University of Alberta, and based on their insights, there appear to have been a few key reasons behind the CFL's better urbanism. First, and most obvious, is age. 2 of the stadiums, TD Place and Percival Molson Memorial Stadium, were built before mass adoption of the car was even an option. In fact, Canadian women didn't even have the right to vote when these stadiums were first built. As such, much like Soldier Field in Chicago, they had solid urban planning elements which have been preserved since. By contrast, McMahon Stadium was built in 1960, at the height of the car craze in many nations, and it was surrounded by wide roads and highways. Second is that while Canada did undergo a wave of car-oriented planning in the post-war period, and continues to have leaders who are pushing forced car dependence, they never experienced it to the same degree as the United States. Unlike the US, they never had mass suburbanization and white flight, nor did they have mass urban renewal, nor did they shove highways through their cities as they hollowed them out for parking. Rather, they seem to have followed the pattern many other cities in the developed world did as they discovered the intoxicating allure of the car. Some highways and parking were added to the cities, and some car-oriented suburban sprawl was built, but the urban cores remained surprisingly strong in terms of both population and jobs. As such, the metro areas were less spread out and more city-focused, so when teams went to select stadium sites, there was a preference for sites closer to the downtown as opposed to those out in the suburbs, which helps to explain the location of many stadiums. Third, many CFL venues are or were associated with the university. Princess Otto Stadium is associated with the University of Manitoba. McMahon Stadium is associated with the University of Calgary. Not only do universities tend to be associated with human-scale urbanism, but they also tend to plan their athletic facilities to be well integrated with their campuses, which tend to be easily integrated into the neighboring communities. Fourth is that the CFL has two problems. On the one hand, the market for CFL teams is fairly saturated. Just about every city which can support a team already has one. This makes it difficult for teams to consider moving. Related to this is a second problem. The CFL isn't nearly as popular as other sports in Canada. These two problems have resulted in two important outcomes. One is that it makes it that teams tend to stay put, which, when combined with their locations, tends to allow human-oriented development to eventually spring up around them. Two is that it makes it that teams tend to want to locate or relocate themselves within the same city in smaller stadiums, which are more easily integrated into urban environments than larger ones. This was the case for the Toronto Argonauts, who used to play at the Rogers Centre but struggled to fill its 50,000 seats. As such, they chose to move a few blocks away to BMO Field, where they could easily fill the 25,000 seats. The big exceptions to this were the two largest stadiums in the CFL, BC Place and Commonwealth Stadium, each of which sport over 50,000 seats, but still scored very highly on urbanism. The reason for this was in part that these stadiums were built for major worldwide events. Commonwealth Stadium was originally built to host the Commonwealth Games, and BC Place was originally built for Expo 86. Both were major events which merited major investments across their cities and necessitated that they be well integrated into the transit network and city. When these stadiums were built, however, these were not desirable areas. After the Games, this set up the areas for organic infill development to occur around them. And this last point is the major factor, which is the overarching reason why the CFL has such good urbanism: organic development. Most CFL venues were not built in places which already had good human-oriented neighborhoods. Most of the stadiums were built in spots relatively close to the urban core, so the kind of sprawl which reached them first wasn't car-oriented, but human-oriented expansion of the downtown. And since the stadiums are relatively permanent fixtures due to the lack of team movement, it was easier to plan around them. Contrast this with many NFL stadiums, which are located far outside of the city and can be at risk of leaving the site or the city entirely, and thus no human-oriented urban development can organically occur around them. Those closer to downtown cores, meanwhile, are either part of long-term plans to spur the kind of development we see across Canada, such as the case of US Bank Stadium, or are able to accommodate development more easily with time, such as the case of Bank of America Stadium. Overall, the big takeaway is that when you make a stadium a more permanent fixture of a space, and you locate it close to the urban core, it allows for the cycle of development and redevelopment to occur more naturally with time, while also making it easier to build out transportation links, at first for the stadium, but eventually these can serve entire neighborhoods. This doesn't mean you can just drop a stadium down and assume the rest will work itself out. Rather, it means that you can plant a seed in the right place and then tend to it as it sprouts and grows into something truly beautiful.